Hello guys, Pressman here, and in this video I'm going to go over an early meta read for patch 14.1. I'm making this video roughly 24 hours after the patch was released on NA, so these comps are based off of multi-region stats, as well as my own experience playing so far in Challenger lobbies. The comps that I will be going over in this video are Samira Reroll, Riven Reroll, Yone Reroll, Yasuo Reroll, Twitch Vex Reroll, Pentakill, and Disco. As you can tell, there's lots of reroll. That seems to be what is like sort of the trend as of right now with the new system changes. In this team builder, you can see I basically put in like all like the main carries in each comp, as well as like their preferred set of items. Like if some of these items, like you can't always build these items every single game, but you'll get like the general like gist of like what items they're looking for. The first comp that we're going to be talking about it's sort of like a staple. It's been around like for basically like the entire set so far really, and it's Samira Reroll. It's level 7 reroll comp. Samira typically wants like IE, GS. Like you can use like Last Whisper, she can use like DB. Just basically like any item that has the AD stat into it. So for example, like Infinity Edge has 35 AD into it. Vex generally wants like sort of like mana regen, attack speed. Like she can use AP as well. Really good source way to kill rods in this comp. Amumu, if you don't have Last Whisper, you really want Even Shroud, or like vice versa. You don't need Even Shroud if you have Last Whisper on Samira, but this comp needs Shred. Ideally, more so for Samira, like the Spark and Shiv and all that's like the Magic Shred is really nice, but it's not as a high of a priority as Armor Shred in this comp, or Mog Steadfast for this comp, ideally. And we're here, I'll talk about the augments as well as the headliners. In this comp, ideally, the main carry is Samira, although Vex is like a really strong unit right now. The main carry is Samira, since like the focus is based around 5 country. So because of that, ideally you want to country Samira. It's much better than Executioner Samira, but in some spots like you just have to take the Executioner Samira. It's like not like the end of the world. It makes it so like your level 8 is adding set. You typically take out like one of the non-countries in order to play 5 country if you have Executioner version. That's part of the reason why country is so much better, is because you can run 5 country, the main core units, on level 7. And you can basically stay on level 7 for a long time because your level 8 doesn't really do much. Samira Vex is like a comp that does extremely well in prismatic lobbies. There's a lot of prismatics that help you play Samira because the cap of the comp is so high and costs a lot of money. Stuff like Cruel Pack is really good. Ignore the Golden Egg. Binary is obviously good, just lots of combat. Twin Terror is pretty good too. Although I will be going over another Twin Terror version, or Twin Terror comp that is much better than this one. Exposed Weakness is pretty good. The comp benefits really well from both forms of Shred. Arch of Progress is really good. Its augment gives you a lot of econ. Basically, you're just looking for like the type of augments that are really good are like the top tier combat augments or econ essentially. Overwhelming Force is really good on Samira because she uses a lot of BF swords. Typically, if you don't have a lot of if you don't natural a lot of BF swords by Krugs, this is more than fine option. Helps you get your items on Samira, which is really important. Spoils of War, Iron Assets. The Riza Crowd is still extremely good even after the nerf. Another Spoils of War, just like any of the top combat augments. The next one is the Twin Terror comp. It's Twin Terror, Twitch, and Vex. This was a comp that started seeing popularity at the end of the patch, like towards like the end of last patch. This comp is still extremely strong. I think it's the best augment in terms of the stats, just like in general. The comp is super stable and super cheap. It also basically revolves around Vex. Vex is just a really strong unit. These are the ideal items for Twitch. It's roughly it's like IE, GS, red buff. Vex is like the same scenario as before, like mana / AP. And this is the same. It's again like it's Even Shroud if you don't have Last Whisper. Ideally, you want Even Shroud on your front line so you can go like more damage oriented items. Warmog Steadfast. In this comp, when you have Twin Terror, it may look better towards like the Twin Terror like a front line, but you really like the priority is Twin Terror on Twitch and Vex. These units do both extremely well with the Twin Terror stats. If you can, you want the items on Amumu over Pantheon, but I put it on Pantheon for simplicity's sake because Pantheon is a lot easier to hit as well. The Executioner Twitch is much better than Punk Twitch, and the reason for that is because it makes your level 7 and 8 extremely easy. Rather than adding like say like an extra Punk for 4 Punk, you can add 4 Executioner, which buffs your Vexes as well as not just your Twitch, which is why the Executioner's version is better. Although like the Punk version is playable, Executioner is definitely much better. From here, you can like this is like a really simple level 7. You can even add like sometimes you can add like another Mumu or Pantheon if you need the front line. It's more so just like whatever you just work around like what you need at the moment. Twin Terror is obviously the best. Or this like I filtered it with Twin Terror. I wouldn't recommend playing this comp without Twin Terror. Exposed Weakness is extremely good in this comp because this comp does a lot of mixed damage and it makes it so you don't need to focus on like an item such as like Last Whisper and Even Shroud. Heavy Hitters is good. This augment's really only good like once you have the 3 stars. It basically doesn't do anything before 3 stars. Actually, I don't know off the top of my head if it does. With the Twin Terror HP, it might do like proc off of Twin Terror. I mean with the Twin Terror HP, although I don't recommend taking this unless you're really close to 3-starring. Golden Ticket is good, helps you hit. I can see Harm Assist being good. Buried Treasure, this comp uses a lot of items. Last Stand is just standard whip win out augment. Bulk is pretty good. Comp really lacks frontline. Binary is good. When there's strong combat augments, you need lots of items, so it's hard to itemize everyone all the time. Empirism is good. It's more so just like generic like combat augments. Like the main one that I would keep an eye out for, like the one that like separates itself from the rest, is Exposed Weakness. This is the comp's best augment outside of Twin Terror. Next comp is Riven. Riven's best items are like you basically need QSS plus healing. You can skip on QSS if you hit Banshees, which they did make somewhat like a little more easily accessible because there's some of the portals have stuff like that. Like for example, like the support Anvil portal. If you have another chance to get Banshees. The main focus of this comp is around Riven and with Caitlyn as a secondary carry. Mordekaiser, Viego. Viego typically carries like your support items, such as like he did get buffed. You can't treat him as a carry. If you have items for him, you give it to him. If you have items for Caitlyn, you give it to him. You typically want to give him like your anti-heal stuff like Even Shroud, anti-heal. You can go Mordekaiser or Viego. Viego kind of just gets in there. His spell gives him like damage amp to the entire team, so you want your Viego typically near your Riven to buff your Riven's auto or like the damage that your Riven is dealing. Riven is your carry as well as your front line, so she's kind of like a drain tank because of how much she shields and everything, which is why it looks like your frontline is really weak in this comp, but the Riven is considered frontline. I in this board I have 3 8-bit. Ideally you want 8-bit chosen, but if say you don't hit 8-bit chosen, you have Edgelord +1, like it's not a big deal. If you have Caitlyn, you just put in Corki. You hit like Caitlyn with like items on it, you just put in Corki. That's fine. You just run 4 8-bit, 4 Edgelord. You can hit 5 Edgelord on 8. It's not a big deal to be 4 out of 3. If you don't have items for Caitlyn, if you don't find like any Caitlyn, ideally you want 4 8-bit when you play this, but you can also do other things. If you have Edgelord +1, you can just play another Edgelord. There's like Yone, you can do like 5 Edgelord. You have an open slot. You can do whatever you want. You can do like Crowd Diver. Crowd Diver CC is pretty good. People don't really pay attention to Crowd Diver CC that much when they corner their carries, and it's definitely underrated in terms of CC. Best headliner is obviously 8-bit headliner. Edgelord is basically the second option, but ideally you want 8-bit. As for augments, know your enemy is strong. Stationary support, the prismatic one especially is strong because there are so many good support items for this comp. Banshee's obviously being like one of the best, which is why it shows you like it's a lot better at 2-1 because it's like you get like more direction, or you basically know if you hit like an early Banshees, like typically like you are angling towards like Riven Yone because they do really well. It basically treats them as like 5-item, like a 4-item carry, which makes them like they're the type of unit where the more items they get, the stronger they are. Vampirism is really good. Omnivamp just lets your Riven go infinite. / Drain Tank. Gifts of the Fallen is really good. Again, Riven just becomes like a one-man army. Drain Tank. Mr. Coin seems to be pretty good. I personally have never played this into Riven, but like the stat state's pretty good. Last Stand, Win Out Augment, Jeweled Lotus. This is another sort of like item augment. It makes your Riven like 4/5 items. Harm Assist, Remembering Your Roots, Inspiring Epitaph, Jeweled Lotus. That's basically it. The next comp is Yone. Yone is another comp that was played during last patch, i.e. Titan's Hodge. Ideally, you want Even Shroud on someone, whether it's Mordekaiser or Viego. Lots of times it's on Mordekaiser because you just have Mordekaiser 2-starred, or you have Viego 1, so you don't really want to put your Even Shroud on someone that typically dies extremely fast or super squishy. Ideally in this comp, your secondary carry is Zed. The priority in this comp is for Crowd Diver. Yone does really well with Crowd Diver, like the Crowd Diver trait, more so than pushing vertical Edgelord, because he's sort of like a caster with the way that he works. He's like a drain tank caster. He's not so much like an auto attacker, which is why like 5 Edgelord, like pushing vertical Edgelord is just like whatever on him. Crowd Diver is more damage. Here I have Yone filtered. Ignore the odd ones out. We're focusing on Yone. Crowd Diver is a lot better than Edgelord. It basically goes Crowd Diver, then Edgelord, then Heartsteel. Heartsteel for obvious reasons. You don't really run Heartsteel. Edgelord can help you push like a combat trait, and Crowd Diver is your best combat trait. It says long distance pals is really good. Usually LDP is good when you can play it on like duo carry. I personally don't really like LDP in this comp. It's because it limits the way that you can position, but I can see why it's good. You just want to give Yone as many stats as you can, make him a one-man army. Empirism good. Lifesteal obviously gives to the Fallen. Yone is going to benefit from a lot of similar augments to Riven because they work in the same way. So like a one-man army drain tank. Unified is good. Heavy Hitters is really good on Yone. He benefits really well from both stats, the AD and AP, which is why Titan's good on him. Stimpack, you can use lots of items. Last Stand, Win Out Augment, gives you Lifesteal plus stats. Jeweled Lotus, Stationary Support, benefits a lot from a lot of our augments. I mean, not sorry, support items, sorry. Jeweled Lotus, Armistice, Martyr, Support Cash, Armistice, Indomitable. Yone doesn't need QSS, but if you can get like a QSS effect on him, he would like it a lot. Just like not through QSS itself. So like Indomitable Will, Silver Veil, Banshees, just like basically like through that. Next comp is Yasuo Reroll. Yasuo Reroll is really strong right now. I personally have not played this patch yet. I played it last patch and I thought it was really strong. He did get changed this patch. They nerfed his healing and I think they buffed his damage if I'm not mistaken. But I've been told by reliable sources that he's strong this patch. His ideal items are IE Hodge, Edge of Night. I don't really think Edge of Night is skippable on him. Ideally you go IE Hodge for healing, and yeah, you typically want to push. Yasuo is another unit that doesn't benefit too well from like the attack speed, or he does do well with the attack speed, but not nearly as well as like pushing vertical true damage. He's a unit like this comp you want to be playing with true damage +1. You don't really want to be angling this with edgelord +1, and you basically just want to push vertical true damage as soon as you can while making sure you have at least 3 edgelord. Like you definitely want at least 3 edgelord, and this is what your comp would look like on level 8 usually. You hit 6 true damage plus like you just hit some of the others like Sentinel, edgelord, and Pentakill. As you can see, the true damage chosen performs much better than the edgelord chosen. As for augments, idealism is really good, i.e. Hodge. Stationary, you probably noticed the trend. Stationary is really good on melee carries. Riven, Yone, and Yasuo. They're all in like this a similar category in my opinion. Freaky Friday, Horrible Forge, like that stance is really good on him. Contagion, I can show the Ornn augments just because Horrible Forge popped up so high. That stance is really good on him. Infinity Force is good on him. Contagion, Healing Orbs, opponent buff it, helps you like pick out like your items because items are not that flexible in my opinion. Not today, gives you the Edge of Night. Stationary support again. Blinked Out is good. Combat Caster, Silver Veil, Jeweled Lotus. Now we're finally off the reroll comps. I call this Pentakill. It's more so just it's basically just like Karthus Flex in my opinion. Karthus Akali Flex. Like these are the main players in the comp. And this comp does extremely well with Pentakill emblem, but you won't always have Pentakill emblem. I will show you all like the different variations of this comp. It's basically Superfan Karthus. I would call it like Superfan Karthus Flex. When you have Pentakill emblem, you want to push for 7 Pentakill on 8 as best as you can. Oh, again, like Pentakill chosen is the best. So I'm going to like show you comp with 6 out of 5 Pentakill. But ideally, once you have if you have Pentakill chosen, it becomes 7. I'll show you the different variations that you can play with the different chosens as well. So here, this is what your level 8 would look like ideally when you have Pentakill emblem. It's 7 Pentakill, 3 KDA, 3 Superfan. Karthus really wants a mana item. Shoujin's the best mana item for him. I put JG Guardbreaker because Karthus is one of the units where you really want your ulti to crit. You only cast so many ults to fight. So your ulti critting is extremely valuable. Sometimes it can just wipe a unit, like a backline unit, from 60% to 0. If they're low rolling and they're 1-star backline unit, it can just one-shot it from 100. In combination with KDA Akali, like they work pretty well with each other. Like they synergize pretty well with each other. Akali hits a unit at the start, gets it pretty low, and it typically puts that unit in Karthus range, which is why items like Hodge are really good on Akali, as well as anti-heal. It makes it so Akali casts faster, and you can Akali casting before the Karthus is typically a big deal because it will always select one of the backline units for the ulti. Ideally, if they aren't paying attention, say like they have a Caitlyn in the corner, your Akali casts first, hits this, gets it a little bit low, and then your Karthus ulti comes through and just finishes it off, which is why the anti-heal is pretty nice. So like their backliner can't heal up. It's like one example. This is the ideal board that you play with this Pentakill chosen Karthus. So if you have chosen, you would just take out this 7 Pentakill. This is the strongest level 8 variant in my opinion. When you don't have Pentakill emblem and say you have Pentakill chosen, you can just run 4 Superfan. You can just run anything cheap. You want to go level 9 with this comp, like 4 Superfan, 5 Pentakill. It's like fine. If you hit this, you basically just want to play strongest and you want to go level 9. This is a comp where you don't really want to sit on 8, and the reason for that is because you want to reach 7 Pentakill. Go 9 for this. You can toss in like a Kale or something. This is your level 9. It's a pretty cheap level 9. You use 7 Pentakill, just play around Karthus again. Karthus does really well with 7 Pentakill. I will talk about another version now. And I would say Executioner Karthus. Executioner Karthus, you can just chuck in a Vex, 4 Executioner, 3 Pentakill. I do think this is like a weaker version because ideally Karthus you want 5 Pentakill if you can, 7 ideally. But this is also like a playable version. So you can just go Amumu as well. This is a pretty cheap level 8. It's 4 Executioner, 3 Penta, 3 Superfan. Like this works as well. You can go 9 off of this, switch into 5 Pentakill, which would be 4 Executioner, which, oh sorry, keep the Vex, and Yorick. 5 Pentakill this way, 4 Executioner, another version. Yeah, that about covers it, honestly. I guess you can like KDA chosen Akali. If you have the items, you can like carry like another Ahri. I don't really recommend this. In my opinion, KDA chosen Akali is just 5 Pentakill still. You just go 5 Pentakill and you're just 4 out of 3 KDA, like whatever. You just lowered your chosen, but like, you have to click on it sometimes. I think that covers like the main like basically all variations. Pentakill chosen, Executioner chosen, KDA chosen. Headliners, as you can see, Pentakill is the best one. Executioner and KDA is definitely the worst out of the 3. As for augments, Shopping Spree is really good with this. Empirism, Little Body is really good with this. You run a bunch of little guys. Stimpack, Spoils of War. Superfan is really strong early, so if you have like a Superfan opener, it's relatively easy to streak as well as like kill a bunch of units, get value from Spoils of War. As for Quest, falls into the same reasoning. Empirism is good just because it's just a really strong augment. The comp, like later on, like this comp doesn't really have that much like healing, and like the little bits of healing as well as like combat in like that like sort of general area does really well in this comp. Armistice seems to do well. Salvage bin, just tempo into this comp. Sleight of hand, roll a dice. These 3 are basically just like early game tempo strongest augments, and basically what I get away from like looking at these augments is that like ideally you want to tempo into this comp. You don't really want to play this comp from behind. Remembering your roots. If you have Chosen Karthus, remembering your roots is probably pretty good. I can't really see why like Chosen Akali would be that good. My opinion, Chosen Karthus is definitely a lot better. I guess you can take this if you have Chosen Akali too. It's not the worst. And the last comp is doing really extremely well right now is Twisted Fate. It's just disco. Basically, this comp is a comp that needs cap round legendaries. It's not like a sort of a cheap comp, but it's an extremely strong comp as well as a comp that has an extremely high cap. And the reason for that is because you can cap around Sona, Ziggs, and Alawi, which are basically like the prime, like the sort of like the strongest legendaries right now. In my opinion, the setup is extremely good for it. Like these Sona and Ziggs benefit extremely well from attack speed, which is like sort of like what disco sort of revolves around. There's a couple different variations that you can play in TF, but ultimately with this comp, you really want to go 9 as best you can. I'll go over the different variations. This, in my opinion, is sort of like the more standard / like bread and butter variation, I would say. Like disco +1 in either Blitz or TF. You just 6 disco, super basic. You don't require any legendaries here. You can go Set instead of Thresh, or Zac instead of Thresh. Zac did just get buffed, so like Zac Thresh as a +1. Lulu Echo. It looks really simple. This can get you to 9 depending on how early you hit on it, but you eventually slot out like some units for legendaries. Talk about the different the other versions. I was told Sentinel Blitz in this comp is not very good. Ideally, it's kind of like just like sort of dead. I think like you can drop Echo, but the only thing is like Echo's a good unit, so you probably just run 3 out of 2 Sentinel. You typically want 5 Disco. Disco is extremely powerful for how cheap it is. I already covered Disco version. I covered Sentinel version. Sentinel is definitely like the weakest version. Dazzler TF is also playable. 4 Dazzler is an extremely strong buff. If you have 4 Dazzler, you just play 5 Disco. You can just like put in Zac Lux. This is an extreme cheap version of 4 Dazzler. Obviously, the best Dazzler is Ziggs, but if you don't find Ziggs, you can just run Lux. You can just sample Zac as well. Your Lux will CC them occasionally, as well as giving you 4 Dazzler, which is a really big DPS spike. You can run like this to 9 as well. Like you kind of want Sentinel in this comp. In this comp, there's so much HP. This comp is sort of like a stall comp, in my opinion. I would say it's like a stall comp. It excels with frontline. If you happen to find like this would be an extremely high roll. Like Dazzler TF, you find a Ziggs plus an Alawi. If you happen to find like Ziggs Alawi on your level 8 roll down, I would say your average placement probably jumps up by like at the minimum of play 1. Another way to play 4 Dazzler. I like more so focus on like the cheap version because it's more realistic to hit. Like this is an extremely good version to play. Say 4 Dazzler. You go 9. When you go 9, this is the legendary trifecta for this comp. You hit this, you probably won the game. Like Ziggs is really strong right now after the buffs, so he does really well with items. I don't remember if attack speed Sona got nerfed or like the other ones got buffed, but I think in this version you still want to go attack speed. I think attack speed is still the strongest in this disco version. Like other boards, like sometimes like like with the Sona changes you could go healing, stuff like that. Sometimes you might want to go healing in this TF setup, but probably like 9 out of 10 times you go attack speed. You have disco +1, so you have 6 disco. You can just take out Tarek. You pretend you have like another ball here or something. 6 disco is powerful for being really cheap, but it's not your highest cap. You don't really want to run a Tarek on your board. Here you can run anything. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can basically just run anything. Random York. Like if you do have York, sometimes like you want to take out Nami, or you can take out Nami and just like leave the Tarek in because you have 2 Dazzler. Like this is fine too. 5 Disco, York, Tarek. You can also go Thresh. This works. You can also go Kiana with Disco +1. In my opinion, Disco +1 is the best version that you can hit. Okay, now like onto the headliners and augments for this comp. Disco's here. Dazzler's here. It seems Dazzler seems to be better. I think this is partly due to, 10,000. I was gonna say like this is partly due to like say you hit like Ziggs Chosen on level 9 or something. I don't think the sample size would be that high if that were the case. So it seems like 4 Dazzler is better than, or Dazzler +1 is better than Disco +1. I thought it was Disco +1, but it seems to be 4. I mean I can see it. 4 Dazzler is an extremely high DPS increase. Dazzler TF seems to be better than. When you have Dazzler TF, you just still run 5 Disco, get the 2 balls, and you just run 4 Dazzler with it. It's probably because Dazzler, what's called, more times than not, like that means you make it to Ziggs, whereas like Disco is like a lot more sample size, and like lots of times you don't, like sometimes it includes maybe a lot more games where you don't make it to Ziggs. It goes Dazzler, then Disco, and Sentinel is down here. So Sentinel is not very good. Sentinel Chosen Blitz basically just means that you just have a Blitz too, and I would basically ignore everything else. As for augments, Little Buddy's extremely good in this comp because you run a bunch of little guys. Nami, Tarek, and Gragas. Yeah, 3 buddies, and your board, it basically just buffs. The units that the Little Buddies buff basically use the Little Buddy stats really well. It's like Blitz, TF, Sona, Ziggs. Keepers is really good because of the way you position. You just clump around the balls. Keepers extremely strong in this comp. I would say this is like probably the only comp that Keepers is strong in. Shopping Spree is strong. Empirism, Combat Augment, team-wide HP. But the Forge seems to be really good. Also, but the Forge items that you can, or like Orn items that you can benefit from. Yeah, I will go to this right now while we're on that topic. Hourglass Sonia's is good. Diamond Hands, Blitzcrank is good. Goldmancer, good. Blitzcrank does pretty well with basically all the frontline Ornn items, aside from like Hole Crusher, I guess. Just because it's a harder position. Although Hole Crusher does not disappear if you're only next to a Disco Orb. Manzane seems to do decent. Tricksters, Gamblers, Triforce is not bad. TFG is like the worst. Gold Collectors by far the worst. Sniper's Focus is not bad. But yeah, basically like half of the Ornn items was like the main units in this comp does well with, which is why With the Forge is good. Living Forge for the same reason. Goldmancer is extremely strong. A Goldmancer 2-1 is into TF is an extremely strong line to take. Crash Test Dummies because the comp does extremely well with frontline. Latent. Ornn item, Epitaph, Strong Combat Augment, Last Stand, helps you get to 9, cap around legendaries. TF as a comp has one of the highest caps in the game. Lucky Streak, tempos into TF really well, as well as like the attack speed is a lot better on TF now. Escort Quest, Disco is extremely strong opener, pretty easy to play into if you have a decent Disco opener. Salvage Bin, same reason, gives you lots of tempo, lets you slam like whatever items for tempo and not feel too bad about it when you remake. New Recruit, lots of strong +1s that you can get in this comp, as well as the Nico. Hitting TF2, Blitz 2 typically lets you speedrun to 9 and cap out really high. Level 9 you can always use a +1. Sleight of Hand, strong early game augments. Martyr helps the front line. Too Big to Fail. Basically, Too Big to Fail is like a whole different comp. Like a way that you can play it because it involves Gragas, you can just play TF. And TF's like an extremely strong backline for Too Big to Fail. This is like completely different, but I just like briefly touched on that. I didn't talk about every single like playable comp right now. I just more so talked about like the top comps. Alright, well, if you guys like videos like this, let me know in the comments. I will try to do like as like the meta develops, this is like I will try to do like a like sort of like midway sort of meta read. But yeah, let me know if you guys like stuff like this. All right, bye bye.